House Committee on State Affairs will now come to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Hunter.
Here.
Hernandez. Thompson. Smithy. Raymond.
Here.
Guerin.
Here.
Guillen. Anchia. Turner.
Here.
Metcalf.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Slauson. Spiller.
Here.
There's quorum.
A quorum is present due to the number of witnesses registered to testify today. We will be limiting testimony to 3 minutes per each witness that testifies. As a reminder, all that plan to testify, please ensure that you're registered through the electronic witness affirmation system that is located on the tablets in the hallway. If you're having trouble registering, please see our assistant clerk, Isabella Huerta, and she will assist you. Please also remember that when you testify in front of our committees, you are testifying under oath and are required to testify fully and truthfully. Today's hearing is also being live streamed on the House website. That's www.house.texas.gov/video-audio. Members of the public wishing to submit comments on today's hearing may do so through the public portal till the hearing is adjourned. Pursuant to House Rule 4, Section 20B, and the standard electronic public comment process established by the Committee on House Administration, all public comments submitted through the portal will be posted on TLIS, TLO, and the House website after the comment period is closed. Directions of how to submit public comments on the portal can be found on today's hearing notice. Let's do those. What's the number? What is it? A note for the record, Representative Anchia is here. So 4552. Okay. The chair lays out HB 4552 and recognizes Chairman Longoria to explain his bill.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. HB 452 improves DIR's ability to serve its existing customers. Texas Department of Information Resources operates a cooperative contracts program for information technology products and services, including computers, software, security hardware, and software networking and telecommunications equipment, IT staffing services, deliverables-based services, and technology-based services. Currently, DIR offers nearly 800 cooperative contracts competitively procured and negotiated by the department, resulting in contracts that offer substantially discounted pricing along with the protection of pre-negotiated legal terms and conditions. Eligible customers include state agencies, local governments, institutions of higher education, K-12 schools, and other entities that serve the public. It's a beneficial program for both the state and the local entities, and it's continuing to grow. Purchases through a DIR's cooperative contracts program exceeded $3 billion during fiscal year 2022, with over 4.2 million purchase transactions. That's a 50% increase over the last 4 years. During the same period, the program saved more than 3,900 Texas governmental entities, and more importantly, Texas taxpayers approximately $1.4 billion. It's approximately 35% of those purchases went to historically underutilized businesses. Last session, Senator Blanco and I passed Senate Bill 538, which gave local entities the ability to request a product or service through the program. HB 4552 further improves upon the changes we made last session by removing burdensome requirements that 2 or more customers must desire a product for DIR to make the service available under the current program. State law requires that state agencies buy IT commodities through DIR's cooperative contracts program if an agency wants to purchase a commodity that falls under a statutorily definition, but that commodity is not in demand by another customer. The agency will nevertheless have to seek an exemption from DIR because DIR doesn't have the authority to provide the agency a commodity. Given the current state of technology, DIR needs the ability to provide customers, particular state agencies, access to highly specialized products or services. HB 4552 addresses the issue by removing the requirement that DIR conclude a product or services in demand by 2 or more customers so that the agency can better serve its customers. The bill adds a definition of technology services eligible for inclusion under the cooperative contract program, providing flexibility for DIR to offer technology services through the program that meets the demands of agencies and local governments. Member, thank you for the chance to add this bill. I reserve my right to close, and I think there's folks here from DIR if there's any questions.
Members, are there any questions for Chairman Longoria? Thank you, sir. We'll reserve your right to close. If there are no questions from the members, we'll look at witness testimony. We don't have any witness affirmations. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, the chair recognizes Chairman Longoria to close on the bill.
Thank you very much, Chairman and committee members, and with that, I close.
Any questions? Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairman Longoria. The chair moves to leave HB 4552 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 4552 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 4553 and recognizes Chairman Longoria to explain his bill. The chair offers a committee substitute to HB 4553.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out this committee substitute to HB 4553. This would provide clearly defined eligible customers for the Texas Department of Information various services. The change would remove unnecessary confusion for all involved stakeholders and strengthen the successful services provided by DIR. As mentioned, the substitute differs from the original by correcting a drafting error and removes the Departments of Public Safety exception to allow DPS to use DIR's data centers. For the file bill also removes Texas Department of Agriculture's exception, and the committee substitute puts that exception back in. Finally, it corrects a drafting oversight in the Government Code section 2157.068 and updates the statutory language in line with the changes made with the rest of the statute. Members, the mission of the Texas Department of Information Resources, also known as DIR, is to serve Texas government by leading state technology strategy, protecting state technology infrastructure, and offering innovative and cost-effective solutions for all levels of government. DIR's programs are spread across 4 chapters of the Government Code, where DIR is authorized or required to provide technology services through statewide technology centers, security services, telecommunication services, and negotiated contracts for IT services and commodities. State law defines entities that are eligible customers for each of these programs, which varies across state statutes. Some entities are eligible for more than one program, but the statutory definitions amongst the programs do not currently align. Varying definitions and eligible customers listed across the program cause unnecessary confusion for the public entities who use these programs, as well as the vendors that contract with DIR. As a result, in the increased research and analysis for DIR staff to ensure compliance. To address this issue and remove any unnecessary bureaucracy, a committee substitute HB 4553 expands and aligns eligible customers across DIR's statewide technology centers, telecommunication services, and cooperative contract program by using uniform statutory definitions. The changes of the committee substitute to HB 4553 will further enhance the cost-saving services provided by DIR across local, county, and state governments. Members, thank you for the chance to lay out this bill. I think there's someone here from DIR to answer any questions, and I reserve my right to close.
Any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, we'll give you the right to close. Any affirmations? There are no members, any witness affirmations. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Chairman Longoria to close on this bill.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members, and with that, I close.
Any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Longoria. The chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute, HB 4553, and leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 4553 is left pending. Okay. So I'm going to 4.
70.
Chair lays out HB 2073 and recognizes Representative Price to explain his bill.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hunter, members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to lay out House Bill 2073 relating to non-ERCOT companies' recovery of fuel and purchase power costs by electric utilities. As you know, Texas has 4 non-ERCOT utilities, including XL Energy through SPS, serving the Panhandle and South Plains, Entergy serving Southeast Texas, SWEPCO serving Northeast Texas, and El Paso Electric serving the El Paso area. These non-ERCOT utilities are obligated to purchase the natural gas and other fuels needed to operate their generation fleets. The fuel costs are passed through to customers with no profit margin added. The issue is the regulatory process for validating these fuel costs and determining the right fuel charges is extremely complicated, time-consuming, and litigious. Uncollected balances accumulate quickly and force utilities to recover funds through surcharges on customers' bills. House Bill 2073 establishes a more efficient fuel cost validation process that would update fuel charges more accurately and more frequently. By doing so, extreme changes to customers' bills are minimized. House Bill 2073 is also going to better synchronize the timing of the fuel expense with recovery from customers, requiring smaller incremental changes on bills to reflect changing fuel prices. In addition, House Bill 2073 increases the frequency of formal prudence reviews from 3 years to 2 years. Be happy to answer any questions. I know there are witnesses here to testify. I would like the opportunity to close on the bill, Mr. Chairman.
For the record, Chairman Thompson is present and Chair Hernandez is present. Any questions for Representative Price? Saying that, we'll give you the right to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, we will go to live testimony. The chair calls Erica Kane. Erica, it shows that you're with Xcel Energy and you're for HB 2073. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Erica Kane. I'm testifying on behalf of Xcel Energy in support of HB 2073. Xcel Energy, operating as Southwestern Public Service Company, is a non-ERCOT, fully integrated electric utility serving around 277,000 Texans in the Panhandle and South Plains region of the state. As you've heard from Representative Price, non-ERCOT utilities like Xcel purchase significant fuel supplies that are necessary to operate our generation fleets. The current process of recovering utility fuel costs from customers is unnecessarily complicated. Because it relies on these utilities predicting future fuel costs, it can lead to significant over or under collection, particularly in periods of price volatility. In Xcel's experience, it often requires multiple regulatory proceedings each year, which can tax the resources of the PUC. This process can lead to customers being billed for fuel costs many months and sometimes even years after those costs were incurred. HB 2073 proposes common sense reforms to the fuel cost recovery process by allowing non-ERCOT utilities to make smaller, more frequent, and more accurate updates to customer bills to better align customer fuel charges with the utility's actual fuel costs. The proposed changes would reduce or eliminate the need for many of the regulatory proceedings currently required to adjust fuel costs. And HB 2073 proposes new, more efficient mechanisms for the fuel recovery process and also seeks to increase the frequency of fuel reconciliation proceedings from 3 years to every 2 years. And it's in those proceedings where the prudency of fuel costs are reviewed. I'd like to thank the committee and Representative Price for their time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark Bell. Mark, we show you're registered for the Association of Electric Companies of Texas for HB 2073. Is that correct? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mark Bell on behalf of the AEC, the Association of Electric Companies of Texas. I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 2073. This bill applies only to those vertically aligned utilities in non-ERCOT areas. Non-ERCOT utilities still operate generation fleets, and these fleets purchase the fuel used to run their generation fleet.
Mark, you need to get closer to the mic. Make sure it's on.
Is that better?
There you go.
Do I have to start over? You want me?
I think you're going to have to start.
All right. Well, then I'll
Hold on. Go ahead and start the timer. All right.
All
So
right.
State your name, Mark Bell.
All right. For the record, my name is Mark Bell on behalf of the Association of Electric Companies of Texas. I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 2073.
Go right ahead.
The bill applies only to those vertically aligned utilities in non-ERCOT areas. Non-ERCOT utilities still own and operate generation fleets, and these fleets purchase the fuel used to run their generation units. The current process for recovering fuel cost is lengthy and complex, but the key takeaway is that the process takes a year to complete, even though the costs are simple to reconcile. Why is this important? Because it means vertically integrated utilities are forced to carry hundreds of millions of dollars in fuel expenses, which increases the cost of that fuel to consumers. House Bill 2073 would make fuel cost recovery more administrative, so utilities are not paying interest on fuel costs, which are then passed along to consumers. Importantly, the PUC retains oversight of the fuel recovery process, and all stakeholders retain the ability to protest a fuel filing. It does not reduce oversight. It makes what should be a straightforward accounting process simpler and less litigious to the benefit of the consumers. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Representative Anchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always nice when, people come and testify before the legislature for the first time. Congratulations. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mark.
All right.
Katie Coleman. So Katie, we have you listed Texas Association of Manufacturers, neutral HB 2073, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Katie Coleman for the Texas Association of Manufacturers. We do have concerns with this bill as filed. We believe that the current fuel adjustment process strikes an appropriate balance as between timely updates for changes in fuel costs and rate stability for consumers. So the current process sets a fuel rate that stays in effect until the next adjustment, which is typically done about twice a year. It is only if there is an exceptional fuel balance that there is an additional proceeding to process a refund or a surcharge. That gives customers a lot more certainty about what their rates are going to be, and there are fewer changes. As you've heard a couple of the witnesses testify already, I think one of the goals of this bill is more frequent changes, which is something that's in some cases hard for customers to manage. We also, the current process for updating the fuel factors is very quick. Typically, those are processed in less than a month. The cases that take longer are when there is a very big balance that requires some further due diligence from consumers. Those cases can take longer. That being said, we are working with Xcel and the other AECT members to see if we can find a path forward on this, as well as Representative Price's office. And I think we have made a lot of progress on language, so we're hoping that we can resolve our concerns, and that's why I'm testifying on the bill today.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Thank you very much. John Gordon. John, we have you listed representing yourself against HB 2073. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm John Gordon, registered professional electrical engineer. Good to see you back, Representative Dean. The reason I'm against is fuel reconciliation is a much more complex process than what's listed in there. I did the $11 billion fuel reconciliation of Texas utilities and the $7 billion one for HL&P back in the 80s. It involves, are you selecting the correct units to run? Are you keeping the units maintained? Are they running it at their efficiency? None of those issues are brought up in this here. Not only that, the whole structure of the electric grid in ERCOT is set up on a bidding process where units or power is bid on a fixed price, regardless of which units are running and everything, or a particular unit's given a fixed price, regardless of what its fuel cost is. There are utilities that are charging their customers with a fuel, such as maybe a city of Austin or a city of Georgetown or cooperative. But once again, this only looks at fuel. It doesn't look at the actual operation of the units and the total units they have, nor the selection of units adjacent utility generators and whether they were selected properly. There's a whole host of issues that this doesn't address. And so I'm not sure that this, while this has some nice language in there, I'm not sure it really addresses fuel cost, if fuel cost is going to be a component in an electric rate.
Thank you, John. Note for the record, Chair Guillen is present. Any questions for John Hill? Thank you very much. Members, there are no other witness affirmations. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill?
Mr. Chairman, is the PUC here as a resource witness?
Do we have some? Yes. Would you like us to call up
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thomas Gleason? Tom, state your name, who you're with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Gleason, Executive Director of the Public Utility Commission of Texas, testifying as a resource witness on the bill.
Thanks, Mr. Gleason. Appreciate you being here. Your sense of the relative efficiency or inefficiency of the existing process. I know you'll just follow the law. Would this bill give you additional bandwidth? Would it free up resources? Do you think you've struck the right balance? You think you have struck the right balance administratively? If you can share your thoughts.
Yes, sir. Representative Anchia, I would say that when we analyzed the bill, we saw that this would provide efficiencies to the way that fuel reconciliation operates for the PUC.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? Seeing none, Chair Price to close.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter and members. Just a couple of points real quick. I will remind the committee that these fuel costs are passed through. The bill establishes a process as illustrated similar to other states. Texas has one of the most complicated and time-consuming fuel cost recovery processes anywhere. And the natural gas prices have been more volatile in recent years, and the current inefficient process has resulted in utilities carrying hundreds of millions of dollars in unrecovered fuel costs. So I'm grateful for the questions. Thank you, Representative Anchia, for clarifying that with the PUC. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may still have. If not, then I respectfully close on the bill.
Any questions, members? Thank you, Representative Price. The chair moves to leave HB 2073 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 2073 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 2549. Recognize Representative Rogers explain his bill. Chair offers a committee substitute to HB 2549.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter and members. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out the committee substitute for House Bill 2549. When the sun goes down in many parts of rural Texas, the sky becomes a long red line of flashing lights that goes on for miles. These red flashing obstruction lights are for the safety of pilots and low-flying aircraft, and we understand that, but there's a better way. The committee substitute for HB 2549 focuses on reducing the light pollution that is created by flashing lights on wind turbines at night. The language that better describes the regulation and requirements for future and already existing wind turbines throughout Texas. We have worked through this language with various stakeholders and Representative Spiller on this committee. I appreciate their time and effort. Rural communities are often the most affected by these red flashing lights, and this annoyance is one of the most common complaints when wind farms are constructed. A solution to this issue would be to decrease the frequency and time lights are visible and reduce the intensity of light pollution associated with wind turbines. This could be made possible by an aircraft detection lighting system called ADLS. ADLS is a radar-based solution that can detect even the smallest non-cooperative targets. They can prevent wind turbine lights from turning on unless an aircraft is approaching or descending toward a wind facility. With ADLS, the Federal Aviation Aviation Agency requires lighting to be activated and flashing if an aircraft is at or below 1,000 feet above the tallest wind turbine and is approaching a 3-mile perimeter around the facility. It has the ability to control the illumination of the turbine's obstruction lights without negative impacts to aircrafts. When these systems are installed, lights are only activated when an aircraft or flock of birds are detected by the radar. Even in poor weather conditions, the units are able to operate effectively. The Federal Aviation Agency would approve the ADLS technologies on a site-by-site basis and would be the agency to regulate and approve the use of ADLS. The benefits of ADLS minimize the negative consequences of wind turbine lights for those in our rural communities, and in turn mitigates one of the common objections that often comes with renewable energy projects. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I respectfully request the right to close.
Any questions, members? Thank you. We'll give you the right to close. We'll go to witness testimony. David Neely. Now, David, we see you're here for EDP Renewables North America and Self, and you're for HB 2549. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Hunter and members of the committee. My name is David Neely. I serve as Associate Director of Development, Central Region for EDP Renewables North America. I'm here on behalf of the Advanced Power Alliance to testify in support of Committee Substitute House Bill 2549. As you may know, EDP Renewables is headquartered here in the state of Texas. We develop all over the nation. We develop, own, and operate wind, solar, and storage sites here in Texas. We're proud to operate over 1,000 megawatts of capacity. And we've got nearly 600 more megawatts in various stages of development and construction here in the state as well. Our work here in Texas has resulted in nearly $2 billion in capital investments, over $30 million in direct landowner payments, over $50 million to local government payments, and $1.5 billion in statewide spending. I personally have been an energy developer for nearly 15 years, majority of that in wind. I was also born and raised in a rural community in the state of Kansas. So I understand and I'm quite familiar with a lot of the concerns that are raised to us when we develop in these communities. The blinking lights on the turbines is certainly a topic that has come up over the years, and largely not an issue that we've been able to mitigate for regulatory and technological reasons. But a lot of that has changed here in the past couple of years with the advancement of these light mitigation technologies. So we're here in support of that. Although this technology is emerging, it's still relatively expensive for us to add. Light mitigation technology on any particular site, estimations we've been receiving baseline is $2 million or more based on the size of the site. If it's an existing site where the structure's already up, you can more than double that estimation. But with all that in mind, we are here in support of this bill and the efforts that it could bring to push the further adoption of this technology. So while I do believe there are non-substantive clarifying changes still to be made, the key agreed to the provisions of Committee Select House Bill 2549 include, first, the requirement to begin installing technology on new turbines installed after December 31st of 2024. The industry believes this is a reasonable timeline and gives us ample time to work through our contractual implications and construction implications that's going to have on the sites that are currently in process. Secondly, the requirement to install this technology on existing turbines only when new power purchase agreements are signed or during the repowering process. Again, the significant costs as noted, they're going to have impact to locked-in contractual obligations and project economics. So this will give those projects time to evaluate and model those impacts in. But with that, EDP Renewables, the American Power Alliance, appreciate Representative Rogers' efforts to balance the concerns of his constituents with the legitimate needs and concerns of both our industry and the commercial customers that we serve. So with that, that's the end of my testimony. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Yes, Representative Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Neely. Am I right? My understanding is there's only one vendor currently who has the ability to provide this technology.
That's our understanding at the moment. Again, it was noted, FAA is going to regulate everything that we do to the airspace. They're going to regulate in totality this effort as well, and the technology and the vendors. Right now on their website, they state that they've got a list of approved vendors, but when you go to that list, there is no vendors listed. They do have some technical documents in their depository that state performance analysis of certain vendors, but that just shows that this technology is very much emerging and the space is very much developing, especially on the vendor side.
Okay, so you're not concerned that the price or the cost of this technology be prohibitively high? I mean, do you think there'll be enough competition in the marketplace to be able to purchase this technology at a reasonable cost?
Yeah, that is a concern that we do have, especially on the work on this particular bill, but we're also seeing in other states as well. They're popping up everywhere. So with the limitations of the vendor and the emergence of the technology, it's all still pretty limited. And if you can imagine supply and demand dynamics, a lot of these bills are pushing for certain timelines for everybody to run to implement them. So the full industry across multiple states are going to be moving. And if the one vendor list is going to make that pretty complicated. And we foresee some element of price gouging or potentials to add elements of expedited services, et cetera, and prices being shifted here in the near term. But we do believe in support of bills like this, that bills like this will help move the process, the regulatory environment, the FAA, the vendors, the amount of investment into the technology. And it's going to, in the long term, definitely improve the overall process. But we do have that concern in the short term.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Gordon. John, we have you listed for yourself for HB 2549. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
John Gordon, a registered professional electrical engineer. The lights on those windmills, and we've all seen it if we've driven through West Texas or flown over the Texas, you'll see huge numbers of lights flashing, is to protect the aircraft or let them know there is obstructions above the ground. The big issue is, do we really need to have every single one of the towers lit? We build 200 megawatts worth of windmills. That's 100 windmills in a pattern. You can indicate the location of the pattern on the outside and sprinkle lights over the inside, because the airline people are flying, have got to know that's a signal for problems there. But we don't need to have all 100 of those windmills putting out 200 megawatts of power, usually at 2 megawatts per windmill, all of them lit up, because you would have the periphery lit and some of the internal area lit. That's enough warning. So I support this bill. I think they need to look more at how many lights they're actually putting up there, because pilots should have in their training and in their experience the understanding, you start running into an area where you see some red lights flashing, that's windmills, generally speaking. Out in West Texas, I don't know of anything else that flashes red lights out there. Anyway, that's my comments to the author.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you. Members, that's all the witness affirmations. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Representative Rogers to close on the bill.
Mr. Chairman and members, there are 7 states that already have this legislation. I think it's going to become the standard of care, already is becoming that in wind energy. 27% of wind energy comes from Texas, U.S. So I think if Texas gets on board, that's going to spur some entrepreneurship and development of some other. I know there's concern about one vendor. I first got asked about this numerous times from constituents, and then also myself. I look over in David Spiller's district 20 miles away, and I look at them myself, and I have a lot of constituents that have asked about this. I didn't have any idea how many vendors there were until we started looking for information about it, but I think other vendors will probably emerge as we move forward. This legislation is not about whether you do or don't support wind energy. It's just about being a good neighbor. And due to House protocol, I wasn't able to wear my red sweater this morning, but Mr. Rogers would approve of this, I believe. So, thank you for your time, and I ask for your favorable consideration of the bill.
Note Representative Smithy is present. Any questions? Representative Spiller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say briefly, I appreciate it. I've gotten more support on this bill, and people happy that I signed on as a joint author in my district and even my older district, people from all around, because it affects our rural areas much more, and I just say I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for your help on the language as well.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Representative Rogers. Glenn. So you're closing on your bill, right?
Well, I thought I'd already closed it. Okay.
I know. You close, right?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. So thank you, Representative Rogers. The chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute to HB 2549 and leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 2549 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 984 and recognizes Chairman Capriglione explains bill.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter, members. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. House Bill 984 relates to the employment of a state chief privacy officer at the Texas Department of Information Resources. Texas state agencies collect obviously significant amounts of personal information about our constituents. As the state continues to offer more services online, we increase the amount of digital personal information we collect: driver's licenses, social security numbers, dates of birth, home address, telephone numbers, credit card information, medical information, student education records, and much more. While a few of our state agencies have developed privacy programs, most agencies do not have significant resources devoted to ensuring compliance with privacy laws and protecting the personal constituent data the state collects. To address that concern, this bill would create within the Department of Information Resources a state chief privacy officer to serve as a resource for state agencies. The roles of the chief privacy officer would include surveying state agencies to determine their privacy maturity, offering guidance and serving as a resource to agencies on how to comply with rapidly changing privacy laws, like we just did earlier today, developing best practices for the collection and storage of personal information, ensuring those with state agencies, and providing training and educational programs to state and local governments about privacy laws and best practices. 20 states already have a state chief privacy officer to provide that guidance and training to state agencies. Texas state agencies would likewise greatly benefit from having a dedicated resource available to provide guidance and training to improve our privacy maturity as a state and ensure transparency about the personal data we collect from our constituents. DIR's privacy officer is here as a resource witness, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chair Capriglione?
Thank you.
All right, we know you will reserve your right to close.
Absolutely.
All right, members, we have no witness affirmations for this. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Chairman Capriglione to close on his bill.
Once again, thank you for considering House Bill 984, and I close.
Any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Chair Capriglione. The chair moves to leave HB 984 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 984 is left pending. The chair lays out HB 2493 and recognizes Chairman Capriglione explains the bill. The chair offers a committee substitute to HB 2493.
Chairman Hunter, members, thank you again for the opportunity to address the committee. Thank you also for laying out the committee substitute on House Bill 2493. What House Bill 2493 does is it makes it clear that if government information is maintained in a searchable, sortable format, it needs to be provided in that format in a public information request. Many times, a government entity will turn a searchable, sortable data into a PDF, which is not easily searchable or sortable to respond to requesters. A PDF is just not as useful to a requester who's trying to sort and analyze a large amount of information. It requires scraping and converting the information contained in the PDF back into the spreadsheet format so that it can be searched and sorted. Releasing data in its native format, if requested, reduces the workload on government employees. They don't need to create an additional document in a separate format. Format accessibility needs to be clearly addressed in the Texas Public Information Act to aid governmental entities and requesters alike. Clarifying this issue will save both time and taxpayer money. Now, what the committee substitute does, it addresses a concern brought to us, ensuring government entities are still able to charge a requester for large requests, as is already allowed in statute. That, I hope you will carefully consider the merits of this bill, and I reserve the right to close.
Any questions, members? Thank you, sir. We give you the right to close. We will go to testimony, members. First, Clyde Neal. Clyde, we have you listed as Texas First and Self 4HB 2493. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I am Clyde Neal. I am speaking on behalf of myself and Texas First, a grassroots election integrity group. I was central count presiding judge in Fort Bend County for the 2022 general election. Professionally, I am a computer engineer with 4 decades of experience developing computer systems similar to election systems. Thank you for this bill. I support it with reservations. Due to my background, I will speak about this bill with respect to elections. My written testimony provides additional information and references. Polls find that more than half of likely voters lack confidence in elections. This is a crisis. To restore trust, transparency, and accountability are essential. We do not have them now. Consider that numerous lawsuits have been filed to obtain or to block requests for public information. Does this imply transparency? Common and expected features that are required to verify the accurate computation of election systems are strikingly absent. Why was equipment without this capability approved? The user manual for a county election system was not available to election judges because of claims of it being proprietary. Why is this not available? Who agreed that a user manual is proprietary? Regarding accountability, a complaint logged with the Secretary of State before the 2022 general election about incomplete testing that was not conducted per Texas Election Code was not responded to. This bill is a step in the right direction. However, I urge you to make it stronger and broader to address the serious issues outlined. Please consider the following changes to Section 552.2285. 1, remove the text, quote, use reasonable efforts, unquote, in subsection G, so that the provision simply requires that parties to a contract, quote, shall ensure contract does not impair access to public information. 2, remove subsection H, which seems to limit applicability to third-party custodians of public information. Why not let it apply to county and state-maintained public information too? An example being election systems, records, and data. 3, clarify subsection I so that it protects confidentiality of individuals' private information, but does not allow providers to withhold public information based on claims of their confidentiality. I urge you to pass this bill with the recommended changes to bolster transparency, accountability, and most of all, trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Dean.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Neal. You're coming before us today and recommending some changes to the language. Have you visited with the author, Chairman Capriglione, about these changes you're recommending to us? I find it a little odd that typically that would be something that you'd work with the author of the bill
on. To my knowledge, no. I have not. That someone else in the in the group. Whether they have or not, I don't have that information.
I would strongly recommend, out of courtesy to the author, that that would be the starting point of any additional language or changes to a bill that you'd like to see. I think it's just common courtesy to the author that if you feel that strongly about something, that you should start there to begin with. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the suggestion, and I meant no disrespect, I assure you.
Thank you very much, and we've got your testimony, and you've got him sitting right there on the front row. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Rod Bordelin. Rod, we have you with Texas Public Policy Foundation, 4HB 2493. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. We support this bill and appreciate Representative Capriglione bringing it forward. We supported it last session as well. I don't think there's too many rights of citizens that are any more important than knowing what your state and government is doing on your behalf. And this helps to clarify, but certainly add some protections in the Open Records Act. You know, when I was running a couple of state agencies, I had to take open records training, and it was always made clear to me that whatever format we had documents, if that was requested in that format, we had to turn it over. I think there was some misinformation about exactly what that meant when you had to do certain conversions. And I think that probably related to, if you look at the code, the government code references still old formats. It even talks about diskettes and microfiche, and I'm old enough to know what those terms mean, but they're not likely the technologies that's used today. So this updates it. We do think there's some important protections in here to make it clear that if a requester is requesting these documents in a specific format, and it is maintained in that format by the state agency or the vendor, that is to be turned over in that format, and we appreciate that.
Any questions? Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Dick Levine. Dick, we have you listed for every Texan for HB 2493. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
My name is Dick Levine. I'm the very senior fiscal analyst at Every Texan, and always happy to join with TPPF in supporting a bill. I just want to give you a brief example of the difference this bill can make. As you may know, I've been very interested in Chapter 313, and the controller has extensive records, every application, every report available as PDFs on its website. I requested that information in a spreadsheet, got it in 10 days. It was extremely useful. I know the Houston Chronicle made the same request, got the same information, and was able to write an 8-part series on 313. Later, a national research organization contacted me. They had questions about 313. They had gone to the website, downloaded the 400 or whatever PDFs, scraped the information, and paid some contractor hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get what I was able to get easily through the open records request. So this is the kind of difference it will make in availability of information between having it there in a useful form immediately or having to spend hundreds of dollars to convert it into something searchable and sortable.
And thank you, Dick. Any questions, members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, that's the last witness affirmation we have. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, the chair recognizes Chairman Capriglione to close on the bill.
Great. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Just give you a quick example of what this bill does. It essentially says if there's a state agency, they have it in Excel, and I say, hey, can I have that document that you already are supposed to give it to me? Can I just have it in Excel so you don't have to do anything and I don't have to do anything? That's what this bill does. So I thank you for the opportunity again for considering House Bill 2493, and I close.
Thank you. Any questions for the chair? Thank you very much. Chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute HB 2493 and leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 2493 is left pending. Jody Johnson.
She is 4-0.
Chair lays out HB 4053 and recognizes Representative Johnson explain her bill.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter and committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about House Bill 4053. As we are all familiar, the personal financial statement is an annual requirement for candidates and office holders in Texas. The personal financial statement is an important resource to ensure transparency and avoid conflicts of interest among state office holders. However, the document has become cumbersome, overreaching, and has become more of an indication of wealth rather than an indication of potential conflicts of interest. It is riddled with redundancies, and it is an unwieldy document that often requires retaining an attorney or an accountant to properly complete it without error. House Bill 4053 seeks to resolve this issue by addressing these redundancies and simplifying the form while still preserving its original intent of meaningful disclosure of real and potential conflicts of interests. HB 4053 removes the requirements to list amounts or number of shares as well as the if sold section for certain sources of income, including retainers, income from interest, dividends, royalties, trust income, mutual funds, and stocks. The public has a right to know what the filer's sources of incomes are, but the amount from the specific source or the source was sold are not further determinations of potential conflict of interest. The bill also provides an opt-out provision for certain sections that are often managed by third parties and managed brokers. Lastly, as it clarifies the current requirements by defining an asset and liability and clarifies requirements for reporting boards and executive positions. I appreciate your time today, and if there are no questions, I think we may have a witness, a resource witness from the Ethics Commission. If other than that, respectfully request the opportunity to close.
Any questions? Thank you. We'll give you the right to close. We'll go to live testimony. Andrew Cates. Andrew, we have you here for yourself for HB 4053. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Hunter, members of the committee. My name is Andrew Cates. I'm here testifying on behalf of myself in favor of HB 4053. While some of you may know me as a registered lobbyist here around the Capitol, I also have a legal practice in which I advise candidates and office holders, political action committees, nonprofits, et cetera, in campaign finance and political law. As you all know, as people who have to fill out these forms yourself, the personal financial statement is an important transparency mechanism to show the public where elected officials may have financial interests when they make decisions and take votes. However, the PFS, as it is colloquially known, has ballooned into a behemoth of a form over the years, cobbled together as a patchwork, which inevitably leads to redundancies in the code. For instance, the code asks the person to list out all business entities that they have a substantial interest in which you have to go and find the definition in another part of the code for what a substantial interest is. And then again, later requires reporting of all entities that you hold a 5% interest in. And then immediately after that, all entities you hold a 50% or more interest in. The intent of doing so is clearly to provide the public with as much transparency as possible, belt and suspenders type approach, which is certainly laudable. But there's no TurboTax for this kind of form. The guidance from the Texas Ethics Commission notwithstanding, elected officials are basically on their own to figure out how to report their entire net worth and usually have to hire lawyers familiar with this form to help them fill it out. Keep in mind also that the dollar amounts that are in the statute listed in the bill here are not actually real numbers. They're essentially waypoints that the Ethics Commission has to use to then index them to inflation every year. So, you know, a $500 amount is more like a $1,000 amount. $25,000 is more like $50,000 these days. So while it may hit the bottom line of folks like myself who are asked to assist office holders with the PFS, the form is due for some updates to simplify it while preserving the intent of public transparency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Members, that's all the affirmations that we have. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Representative Johnson close on her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the consideration, and I close.
Any questions? Thank you. The chair moves to leave HB 4053 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 4053 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 3924 and recognizes Chairman Oliverson to explain the bill. Chair offers a committee substitute to HB 3924.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be with you today talking about House Bill 3924. This bill essentially would make state employment more accessible for all Texans by shifting agencies' focus in terms of folks meeting the qualifications from whether they have the appropriate degree to whether they have the skills necessary to do the job. It would require agencies to have a standardized skills test so that we could migrate some of these positions from a situation where only certain degree holders can apply to, are you really capable of doing the job? So why this is important and why I've become interested in this, in 2022, the turnover rate for employees at state agencies was 22.7%, which was the highest rate in more than 2 decades. And of that, 63.1% of that 22% were folks that had been employees of state agency for less than 5 years of service. So these are folks that are coming in and not hanging around. In addition to that, a 2015 study looked at 26 million jobs sort of globally in government and found that 8 million of these jobs across the board were situations where there were conflicting requirements as far as what educational level was necessary to do the job. And so I point that out simply because making the case that what we really should be doing is hiring people based on competency and skills, not based on whether they have the right degree. We already have ample evidence out there in the real world that there are positions available simultaneously in different places where the educational requirement for the same exact job is variable. And obviously that doesn't make sense. So under House Bill 3924, the state auditor's office would be tasked with creating a standardized aptitude test based on each state agency's analysis of what skills might be required for open positions. Candidates would then have the opportunity to take the exam in lieu of formal education requirements. For more specialized positions, they would be allowed to create specialized assessments for specific skills for that position. And this will make our government run more smoothly and efficiently and give a larger number of folks in our state the opportunity to compete for and win some of these positions based on their actual talent and skills rather than the piece of paper that's on their wall. This committee substitute, the big change in that is that it moves the aptitude assessment from the Workforce Commission to the state auditor's office. So that's the big change. And I'm aware that this costs some money. Apparently they've decided, and so I'm aware of that and happy to take any questions that you have and like to reserve my right to close.
Any questions, members? We'll give you the right to close. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll go to live testimony. Shane Sokol. Shane, we have you with United Way, Dallas Metropolitan, and Self for HB 3924. Is that correct?
Correct.
Go right ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Dr. Shane Sokol, and I'm here today to speak in support of HB 3924 and skills-based hiring. In conjunction with the United Way Metropolitan Dallas and the Rework America Alliance, we are helping employers understand the benefits of skill-based hiring practices and how to include such practices in their recruitment of new employees. As we all know, there is a significant talent shortage in many industries across the country. This talent shortage has been caused by a variety of factors, including changes in technology, shifts in the economy, and an aging workforce. As we all know, if you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you'll get the same results. Skills-based hiring is a hiring process that tries to address the talent shortage by focusing on an individual's skills and abilities rather than their educational background or work experience. This approach has been gaining popularity in recent years as employers recognize that traditional hiring methods may not always identify the best candidates for the job and often overlooks individuals who can successfully do the work required in a given job. Examples of skills-based hiring practices are writing job postings based on core skills needed instead of focusing explicitly on credentials or other core experiences. Evaluating candidates based on demonstration of skills and willingness to learn. Specifically, a job candidate's ability can be evaluated through skill-based measurements such as skills assessments, like the one proposed by HB 3924. By focusing on skills rather than other factors such as education or experience, employers can and are finding candidates who have been overlooked in the past, thus addressing their organization's talent shortages. In addition to my written comments, I've also included a one-pager summarizing the positive outcomes that private sector organizations and other organizations across industries have experienced with skill-based hiring, such as increased efficiency in the hiring process and higher employee retention rates. Given these successes, I'm confident that state agencies can adopt similar practices to achieve comparable benefits. In conclusion, I'd kindly ask the committee to support this bill and skills-based hiring as a way to address the talent gap across government agencies. Thank you for the time and consideration in supporting HB 3924. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you. Renzo Soto. Renzo, we have you with Texas 2036 for HB 3924. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Chairman Hunter and committee members, thanks for the opportunity to testify today. We at Texas 2036 are glad to lend our support to House Bill 3924 and would like to thank Chairman Oliverson for his leadership on this issue. As has already been mentioned, state agencies are facing record high employee turnover rates, and retirement is a large contributor to that. At the same time that younger employees are not sticking around in state employment, so we're not building the institutional knowledge that we need in our state agencies. So over at Texas 2036, we also support other efforts by the legislature this session to address this issue, such as pay increases for state employees, but it's equally important that state agencies are competitive in their ability to attract talented candidates for state jobs. House Bill 3924 would expand the pool of qualified candidates available to state agencies by providing skilled Texans an alternative path to consideration through skills measurements. We have over 2.5 million Texans today that have some kind of higher education experience, but not necessarily the degree or their certificate to validate the skills that they've earned. However, they do have the skills that are needed by some of these state jobs. And so while formal degree or experience requirements in state jobs are likely keeping these skilled individuals out of state employment arbitrarily, we know that they have the skills that are needed to fill them. And so under House Bill 3924, we believe that state jobs would open up to skilled Texans by providing them with an optional skills assessment for certain jobs. This will help state agencies not only recruit talent to fill open jobs, but also retain talent to ensure that the institutional knowledge needed to efficiently and effectively service the people of Texans is being developed. Thanks again for the opportunity. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, that's all the witness affirmations. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Chairman Oliverson to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. 2.5 Texans currently have some college experience but lack a degree. That doesn't mean that they don't have the skills and knowledge necessary in order to be able to be highly competent and highly effective employees for some of our state agencies, but right now they're locked out. And so this bill would seek to give them an opportunity to compete for these jobs. Other states have done this, including Utah, Maryland, North Carolina, and Colorado, and they have seen very positive results. And with that, I close. Thank you.
Any questions, members? Thank you, sir. Chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute to HB 3924 and leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 3924 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 1828 and recognize Representative Turner to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Members, House Bill 1828 has to do with our personal financial statements that we all must file with the Texas Ethics Commission, and would simply require the Ethics Commission to post these reports online. Just like our campaign finance reports are available to the public online, this bill would make personal financial statements also available online. And I think it's just simply updating our statute to reflect how we live here in the 21st century. We do everything online. We pay our taxes. We shop. We go online for a variety of resources, and this information, if it's be truly available to the public, as is the intent of the law, these should be required to be posted on the Ethics Commission website. So specifically, the bill would amend Chapter 572 of the Government Code to require each financial statement available to the public to be posted on the Texas Ethics Commission website not later than the 15th day after the date the statement is required to be filed, or the date the statement is actually filed, whichever is later. And that's what the bill does. I believe there's a resource from the Ethics Commission here if you need them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions and request the right to close.
Any questions, members? Thank you. We'll let you have the right to close. Anybody want to have a question for the Ethics Commission? All right. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify for, against, or on? Saying none, you have the right to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no questions, I close and ask the committee's favorable consideration.
Thank you, Representative. The chair moves to leave HB 1828 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 1828 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 4510 and recognize Representative Smithy to explain his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bill that the Comptroller's Office had requested relating to annual financial reports that are submitted by state agencies to the Comptroller. They're also submitted to the Governor and the State Auditor and the Legislative Budget Board, among others. It changes the deadline for some agencies other than higher education institutions or those agencies that are required to do an external audit, changes the deadline from November 20 to November 1, almost 3 weeks earlier. And the reason for the change is that this change would give the Office of the Comptroller additional time to compile and complete their annual comprehensive financial report. The problem that they've been having is that when these are submitted on the 20th, it's right before Thanksgiving. And so their employees are all required to work over the holidays to get this done, and so they can't keep any employees. They're losing all their people because they're having to they have no choice but to work over the holidays. So they feel, and from the input I've received, that this deadline won't be onerous on the agencies involved, and it will give them a little breathing room and hopefully be able to keep some people doing the work. And I'll be glad to address any questions.
Any questions, members? We'll give you the right to close. We don't have any witness affirmations, members. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Representative Smithy to close.
And I'll close, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Thank you, Representative Smithy. Chair moves to leave HB 4510 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 4510 is left pending.
That's a good idea.
You ready?
I'd probably quit. I'd probably quit too, babe.
Chair lays out HB 4811 and recognizes Representative Anchita to explain his bill. Chair offers a committee substitute to HB 4811.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Really do appreciate you hearing this bill. Texas has been a leader in energy efficiency for a long time. There's been broad bipartisan support in this state for really dealing with the demand side of the curve. We spent a lot of legislative bandwidth here discussing how we're going to deal with generation, but anybody in the electric market will tell you that simply dealing with the demand side without looking at the supply side is not going to get us where we need to go. Thankfully, the state's going to be receiving hundreds of millions of dollars, about $800 million from federal funds over the next few years for energy efficiency. And I've been working with the PUC on an approach to figure out the best way to allocate those funds in our state. And so we are going to be creating a council so that we can appropriately allocate those funds. You know, energy efficiency oftentimes is not so sexy to talk about, but we've got almost 160,000 energy efficiency workers in this state. And in Dallas County alone, where I live, there are about 25,000. I mean, 160,000 workers, that is equivalent to a top 20 city in population in the state of Texas. And, you know, some of the early efforts on energy efficiency were with Governor Bush and Pat Wood. I had an opportunity to meet with Pat Wood earlier today, and he was talking about how that Texas was a leader in energy efficiency for the longest time. That Representative and then later Speaker Strauss passed the most comprehensive energy efficiency bill in the country at that time in 2007. And we've fallen a little bit behind, but with this federal money that's coming in, we'll be able to catch up quickly. So House Bill 4811 creates the Texas Energy Efficiency Council, TEC, to promote energy efficiency through a statewide collaborative. There's no single entity in Texas tasked with measuring energy efficiency performance and evaluating potential statewide opportunities to help electric consumers reduce consumption and lower electricity costs. These are all of our constituents through energy efficiency measures. And TEC is going to be structured similarly to the Texas Energy Reliability Council, TERC, that was created from SB 3 last session. And again, I've been working very closely with the Public Utility Commission, and they feel that this is the right approach for catching those federal funds and allocating them. And I will point out, though this is not the subject of this bill, energy efficiency in the private market is really important, and we feel that the legislature, working very closely with TEC, will be able to come up with strategies for increasing our energy efficiency standards. So with that, members, Mr. Chairman, I humbly beseech this committee for the opportunity to close.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions? You'll have the right to close.
Thank you.
We will go to our witnesses. Adrian Shelley. Adrian, we have you with Public Citizen for HB 4811. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Adrian Shelley with Public Citizen.
Go right
Appreciate
ahead.
the opportunity to speak for House Bill 4811. Representative Anchita said it well. The Energy Efficiency Council is a good way to coordinate activities, opportunities that we have here with federal funding. There's provisions to give the public information about the sorts of programs that are available. There's going to be reporting to give this legislature information about the effectiveness of the programs. Don't want to belabor all that. I'll just say a little bit about the opportunity that is in front of us. The American Council for Energy Efficient Economy estimated that with a $4.9 billion investment over the next 5 years, we could shave about 15% of our winter peak load, 10% of our summer peak load, and we would do that through direct investment in 9 million homes here in Texas. We're talking about things like electric furnaces, heat pumps, central air conditioning, and electric vehicle charging infrastructure for homes. This is direct investment in people. And I just want to conclude by saying there are 3 major benefits that we get here. 1, gets us closer to grid stability. 2, we reduce energy use and lower electricity bills for people. And three, and perhaps most importantly, we make our homes more comfortable, warmer in the winter, colder in the summer. So for those reasons, we support.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members? Thank you, sir. Cyrus Reed. Cyrus Reed. Cyrus Reed. Will show that Cyrus had an affirmation on behalf of Lone Star Chapter Sierra Club 4, HB 4811, but is not here. So, he has appeared. So Cyrus, come onto the microphone. So we have you, Lone Star Chapter Sierra Club 4, HB, I'm giving you time, 4811, correct?
That is correct, Chairman Hunter.
So here just a second while we reach for the time clock. Go right ahead.
So, you've heard me speak before. You've heard me say, to fix the energy grid problems, we need to look at the supply side and we need to look at the demand side. HB 4811 looks at the demand side. It doesn't do it through a regulatory requirement. It doesn't say, thou must do this much in demand response and energy efficiency. We would support that too. That's not what this bill does. What this bill does is say, the same principles that you guys did last session, making the Railroad Commission and the PUC work together on weatherization, let's make the PUC, SECO, TDHCA, and other agencies that deal with energy efficiency work together and cooperatively look for how we can make the best use of existing state, utility funds, and upcoming federal funds. And on page 3 of my brilliant testimony, written testimony, you will see a list of some of the programs that we believe will be coming to Texas, to TDHCA, PUC, and SECO. If you total those numbers, it's potentially on the order of $1 billion that could come to Texas. I'll tell you, as someone who worked hard during, long time ago, during the Obama years, there was a bunch of money. Some of that money got wasted because we weren't careful and smart about it. So, exactly. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here to hear my final few seconds. So we want to make sure going forward, we have an Energy Efficiency Council that makes good use of this money and also looks at the existing programs so that if Encore or CenterPoint want to work with TDHCA that's getting this extra money in a way that uses their existing programs and this additional money in a smart way, they can do so, and the public, the consumer. You go on PUC's website right now, you wouldn't even know that the energy efficiency programs of Encore and CenterPoint exist and how to access them. Having a one-stop shop of stakeholders and hopefully some sort of campaign and outreach is going to help consumers know about the programs so they can take advantage of them. So with that, this tired young man, once young man, will be quiet.
Thanks, Cyrus. Any questions? Representative Anchia.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question, but first a comment. I want to say thanks for hustling on over. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're booked in multiple committee rooms right now. You're
and watching the Senate floor, which has some importance.
and oftentimes you're a one-man show. And I appreciate your hard work, honestly. You spend time in a space that is really important that really would not be the same without you. So I'm grateful. This chart that you put together is also very helpful. I know you had provided it to our office, but it really contextualizes ways in which we can effectively do energy efficiency. So I wanted to thank you for that. And I guess I said I had a question, but I don't. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I want to thank you. This is not the first time that you've brought up the issue of the demand-side energy efficiency. You've had not this bill, but similar bills in the past. And so I want to salute you for continuing to talk about this issue because it's important for the environment and consumers, but it's also the color green, not the color green for the environment, Speaker Garin, the color green for saving money for consumers, because ultimately this is about saving money for consumers.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Cyrus.
Thank you.
T-S-I-O-N Amari. Environmental Defense, you're going to represent the Environmental Defense Fund.
Correct.
And you're for HB 4811, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then state your name and who you're with.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My name is Zion Amara, and I am representing Environmental Defense Fund, testifying in support of House Bill 4811. In recent years, Texas has witnessed firsthand the direct impact of a warming climate. As a result of record-breaking summers and unusual winter temperatures, we have also become keenly familiar with the unreliability of our power grid and the human cost of inactions. In a state with a growing population and an increasing demand for energy, Texas needs to get on board in implementing and supporting energy efficiency programs that will save money, reduce harmful greenhouse gases, reduce overall energy use, all while increasing the reliability and resiliency of our power grid. House Bill 4811 creates the Texas Energy Efficiency Council to coordinate, improve, evaluate our state energy efficiency program and goals. This bill will also provide better coordination between local, state, and federal energy efficiency programs while improving accessibility for consumers. Through this bill, consumers are able to have a central place of all the available energy efficiency programs based on their service area. Additionally, this bill calls for the council to report on energy efficiency performance in the state. Texas has enormous potential for energy efficiency, and this bill is a good step in ensuring that our state once again leads the nation on energy efficiency and ensure Texans are not left in the dark or with high electricity costs. Thank you so much, members, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Zion, thank you. Any questions, members? Thank you very much. Noah Oakes. Noah, we show you are with South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency, and you're for HB 4811.
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Noah Oakes. I'm here to speak on behalf of the South Central Partnership for Energy Efficiency as a Resource, which is a mouthful, so we go by SPEAR typically, and we are on for the bill today. SPEAR is one of the 6 DOE-designated regional energy efficiency organizations in the country, and through that designation, our mission is to accelerate the adoption of energy efficiency products and services in Texas. With the potential influx of federal funds and the demand-side energy needs of the state, we believe HB 4811 may position Texas effectively to leverage funding opportunities across the various state agencies tasked with facilitating and implementing energy efficiency efforts. And with the state population growing, more businesses being established here, and extreme weather events occurring more frequently, the need for a cohesive statewide energy efficiency strategy is incredibly important, and we will help this will help Texans reduce their energy bills, keep the lights on in times of need, and be an overall benefit to the state. The Texas Energy Efficiency Council would be beneficial in the short term and the long term in providing this strategy and oversight. We appreciate Representative Anchia's leadership in this space. And we're happy to speak here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you very much. Bruce Naylor. Bruce, we have you listed testifying for yourself for HB 4811. Is that correct?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
This is my first time to ever be a witness. I have a PhD in computer science. I've taught at University of Texas at Austin, as well as DeVry University and Georgia Tech. I also spent 10 years in research and development at Bell Labs, which is where the transistor, solar cell, and the laser were all invented. I'm here what I've been doing in the last number of years is having a startup that was dedicated to exploiting various aspects of artificial intelligence, in particular computer vision, in order to automate the inspection process for buildings, the building envelopes. What I wanted to speak to you about or encourage you, first thing, just in general, supporting energy efficiency is incredibly important and should be pursued with all haste and supported. But I wanted to make sure that you had an awareness of what's coming down the pike, and that is with the SBIR, is that it? No. The Inflation Reduction Act. They have funds for individuals to be able to convert their house, their residence, into more energy efficient domiciles. But what doesn't seem to be addressed is workforce shortage, people who are adequately skilled in delivering it. Texas has 12 million homes. There's going to be the new requirements coming from the federal government are going to manifest in building codes. And we don't have a workforce that's adequately trained. And this actually predates the virus and predates really the climate change intensity that we have. In other words, it was just a construction industry did not have the workforce. And so now we've exacerbated because now we have this much greater need. And so I think that either through community colleges or through some sort of mechanism, need to develop a program for creating the workforce that it's going to be required to facilitate the transition into a much more energy efficient community.
Thank you very much, sir. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Kenneth Flippen. Kenneth, we have you with U.S. Green Building Council, Texas chapter and self for HB 4811. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Go right ahead.
So yeah, I'm Ken Flippen, representing the Texas chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council, and we're here in strong support of HB 4811. We think that this legislation is something that Texas desperately needs. We've long been a leader in energy efficiency, but we've lost that lead. We are now 29th in energy efficiency. A lot of that has to do with us not only falling behind on our state programs, but also when we do have federal programs, we don't take full advantage of them, and we haven't historically used that money strategically. The Energy Efficiency Council would help us do that. And so for all the reasons that other people have stated, we think it's a great idea. We think we're going to make major strides. All these different agencies and their programs can help us get these programs not only implemented, but get the savings back in the pockets of Texans. I do want to point out that like the energy efficiency part of fixing the grid is something that other speakers have talked about, and it is important. We can literally take off thousands of megawatts of peak load from the summer and the winter by implementing these programs, money that's already there, hundreds of millions of dollars that we can spend effectively. But I also want to make one other point. if we do have that extreme event that takes down the grid again, a home that is not energy efficient, has had no upgrades, is something like 40 or 50 years home. The survivability in an extreme event of those homes can be a few hours. If we had energy efficiency upgrades on most of those homes and those people are still out of power and in an extreme weather event, that survivability can spread out to a day or two, especially for the elderly. And so if we think about that, even if we aren't able to prevent with this legislation and other things, the failure of the grid, we could actually save Texans' lives by implementing energy efficiency programs. The energy that we save is just as valuable as the energy that we create. And effectively, it's much less cost prohibitive for whoever's paying for it, which is ultimately the taxpayers or the ratepayers. And so by implementing these programs, not only are we saving lives, helping fix the grid, but we're also saving consumers money.
Thank you. Kenneth, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Gordon. John, we have you registered for yourself for HB 4811. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
Yes, John Gordon, electrical engineer. 1979, I was a coordinator for energy conservation programs in the Governor's Energy Advisory Council. So we've had energy conservation for a long, long time. The program then was the drip irrigation systems out there in West Texas. They were spray irrigation. And one of the programs we were doing was changing it from spray down to drip irrigation, cutting down the electricity, cutting down the loss of water, and proving it up. And then if you'll go around now, you'll see irrigation systems all over Texas. They use a more efficient system. I'd have to say in 2010, 11, we had almost another blackouts. And then the load didn't grow real great, and everybody's wondering why. Well, LED technology was coming in. And so if you remember that time frame, everybody put in a lot of LED lights and stuff, and cities were changing out their lights to LED. About 5,000 megawatts of load was reduced during that period of time. That was technology that did it. So first off, thank you for taking this bill and moving it forward. Energy efficiency is very important. I'd say that energy efficiency, phone calls. Do y'all get all those phone calls? Energy efficiency is done by research, testing out, marketing, and then letting the marketplace decide if it's efficient to put in, because some technology or whatever may cost more than the energy you're saving. So just try to keep that in mind as you move forward with these programs and everything. And I do endorse your legislation and the energy efficiency in Texas.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, John. Anybody else?
Nobody ever asked questions.
Members, there's no other affirmation. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? Come right up. You're going to have to talk with the assistant clerk right here. Wait 1 second. She's going to come. We're all right. All right, Allison Silverstein, we have you registered for yourself for HB 4811, correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and members, thank you for your grace in allowing me to testify after my registration screw up. I am testifying on behalf of HB 4811. I'm testifying as an individual, but I have extensive experience in energy efficiency due to my past role on the board of the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy as an independent consultant and as an advisor to Chairman Pat Wood at the Public Utility Commission and at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I am supporting creation of the proposed Texas Efficiency Council because I agree that this council would bring much needed attention, resources, and better execution of energy efficiency and energy efficiency dollars that would benefit all Texans. Representative Anchia and many of you are well aware that energy efficiency is the single most important and cost-effective resource available to us to protect and improve grid reliability. Energy efficiency measures cost less than comparable supply-side resources, particularly natural gas plants that are paid for at their full capital and operating costs without any discipline from the public competitive market. Targeted efficiency measures can reduce Texas peak load spikes in extremely hot or cold weather conditions and protect customers' health and safety when the power goes out for any reason. Because efficiency measures cost less than supply-side resources, these measures can improve power system reliability and reduce power system costs. And at the same time that efficiency saves us all money, it lowers bills for individual customers and businesses that receive these investments. I support the Energy Efficiency Council because it would improve our state's management and use of this valuable resource and increase our state's efforts to procure and manage funds effectively to spend on efficiency. The council should also produce reports that improve and expand our programs over time. However, HB 4811 does not go far enough. Texans cannot wait for more energy efficiency, and we cannot wait for a council to figure out our next steps. Rather, we need immediate mandated requirements to begin using energy efficiency to reduce Texas peak load by at least 1% every year, with assured funding to cover these program costs. And we must recognize that the value of energy efficiency is equal to the cost that we must pay for new supply-side generators intended to protect us from grid failure. I urge you to adopt such measures immediately, as proposed in other bills before this legislature. There are over 8 million housing units in Texas today. As you've heard, 60% were built before Texas building codes required energy efficiency. Current Texas energy efficiency programs deliver efficiency measures to fewer than 30,000 homes per year. That means most Texas homes are wasting residents' energy and dollars every day, and in practical terms, energy efficiency is for us an inexhaustible resource opportunity. A new Texas Efficiency Council will tell us that we need energy efficiency now more than ever to slow the growth of load and reduce vulnerability. I encourage you to invest in this immediately and support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. Anybody else? Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, Chair recognizes Representative Chia to close on his bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for hearing this bill. It sounds like there's a lot of support for it. I just want to give a shout out to the PUC and the State Energy Conservation Office for their contribution to this committee substitute and for working alongside me during this process. I close.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Thank you, Representative. The chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute to HB 4811 and leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 4811 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 2669 and recognizes Speaker Guerin to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. House Bill 2669 deals with reducing the 365-day timeline on a CCN case to 180 days. Constructing new electric infrastructure is essential to the economic development of the state. And in an effort to support grid reliability, resilience, and load serving capacity, the PUC decision timeline should be reduced. Current law allows for up to a year to consider most CCNs with respect to transmission line projects that are designated by the ERCOT as critical to transmission system reliability. However, that timeline is shortened to 180 days for critical. HB 2669 will shorten the existing process in Texas for the PUC to consider and render decision on applications for certificates of convenience and necessity to construct new electric transmission lines in Texas. And Mr. Chairman, I believe we've got some witnesses from SOA and PUC that can be helpful in giving us a timeline of the current process. And so if you don't mind, we'd like to call them up later. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. And there are people here that to testify on this bill.
Okay. Thank you, Speaker Guerin. Any questions for the Speaker? Thank you. We'll give you your right to close. We'll go to the testimony. Jaron Taylor. Jaron, we show you're representing Encore Electric Delivery and you're for HB 2669. Is that correct?
Correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is potentially the simplest bill you're going to see all session. It essentially changes 4 words of existing statute to change a deadline from 365 days to 180 days. Functionally, what does that mean for transmission projects? It is literally a day-for-day savings on our ability to get projects in service faster to meet the reliability needs of this state and to meet the customers' interconnection deadlines. The number one piece of feedback we receive from industrial customers in this state is, how can we get projects in service sooner? How can you get us power sooner? As mentioned, this is a 6-month change immediately if this bill were to be passed to those in-service deadlines. And we very much thank Representative Guerin and Senator King for bringing it forward. This process is well known and understood. It's been utilized for several years at the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Sitting in the back of the room, I was looking at Mr. Spiller over here to my right. First time I met Mr. Spiller was on a project that came very close to Jacksboro in his home. It was a 6-month project. Had 300 separate parties participating in that transmission line project, 161-mile project. It was processed at the Public Utility Commission very expeditiously on a 6-month timeline, approved and put in service and went forward to construction. Point being, the PUC has an excellent process for providing due process to landowners, for having a thorough analysis of transmission line projects. That process is well ingrained and is a great part of the state agency's mandate. This 6-month time frame doesn't change that. That same due process occurs to move projects forward just in a more expeditious manner. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions? Representative Spiller?
Briefly, Jaron, I thought it went smoothly, just you were going to say because I was involved. I didn't realize it was because of the process, but thank you very much.
You take credit where credit's due.
That's right. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Katie Coleman. Katie, we have you with the Texas Association of Manufacturers for HB 2669. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. We do support this bill. Transmission is often one of the long lead time issues for
Identify.
Yeah.
Oh, do I need
Just
to do it
state
again?
your name
Sorry.
and who you represent.
Katie Coleman, Texas Association of Manufacturers, and we are for the bill. As I was saying, when we are expanding our facilities, and particularly for oil and gas growth in West Texas and other rapid growth regions, transmission is often one of the longer lead time projects. We believe that this 180-day process still provides sufficient due process. As I've been saying to people on this bill, we process rate cases at the PUC in 185 days, and those involve a lot more issues. They're much more contentious. Typically in transmission planning, a line has already been through an extensive vetting process at ERCOT to determine the need for the project. So really, we're typically just focusing on where the line's going to go, and that's something that we believe can easily be done in 180 days. My members are wanting electric service, but many of them often also end up in the position of being landowners in these cases themselves. We've had lines that have crossed CO2 floods, for example, that are operated by my clients, and we have to find a way to safely put the line across the property. But we've been able to handle even complicated issues like that within a 180-day time frame. So we think this is a good improvement. It will help interconnect loads faster, but without compromising any of the due process that residents and landowners enjoy today. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions? Thank you very much. John Gordon. John, we have you registered for yourself for HB 2669. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
John Gordon, electrical engineer. I am here in support of the bill. I think 180 days should be the minimum, the maximum time. I've been both at the PUC on the end of the engineering, stating whether it should be or shouldn't be. I've been an intervener against lines, and I've actually designed lines trying to put them in. So I've been on every phase of the lines. And if there is good cooperation among the parties, specifically the electric utilities wanting the lines and the hearings examiners portion at the PUC, 180 days is easily maintained. So I do support the 180-day deadline and everything. There could be situations, but then I think with a complexity, maybe an alternate route pops up, and the utility is the one that would then ask for an extension of time. I think everybody else would accept that. But generally speaking, 180 days should be a sufficient time to get these transmission lines certified. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. I don't know what's anybody else. All right, members, does anybody, there's no other affirmations. We do have resource if you want them.
So,
all right. Thomas Gleason. Now, state your name and who you're with on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Gleason, Executive Director of the Public Utility Commission of Texas, testifying as a resource witness on the bill.
Go right ahead. If you have questions, you'll represent Anchia.
Thank you. And this is a process I don't know a lot about, but what is the current time frame that the PUC is coming in at? And would this be a strain on resources? Would it be a problem to meet these new timelines?
So typically they get done around a year time frame. As we indicated to Speaker Guerin and to the Legislative Budget Board, we believe most of this would be dealt with at SOA. We refer these cases to SOA. They set a procedural schedule for a year. They would now have to fit all of that procedure into 180 days. We feel for the PUC this is a workable timeline. As has been stated, we do this on other cases, rate cases, and critical reliability CCNs. And so we feel it's workable for us within our existing resources.
And the way that the bill works, if you don't meet that timeline, is it deemed approved?
So no, it is not. The remedy there is the utility could file a writ of mandamus at the Travis County Court and seek to have us act.
Gotcha. And that, I imagine, would take some time as well.
It would, and to my knowledge, that has never actually happened.
Okay. Thank you.
Speaker Guerin.
Yes, sir, and thank you for being here, and thank for sending some of your people over to my office. They've been very helpful.
Yes, sir.
When SOA sends the recommendations back to the PUC, does the PUC have to accept those recommendations?
No, they do not.
Can they approve, modify, or reject?
Yes, sir.
Then why do we send them there?
Because that is where most of the evidentiary record gets built over at SOA. So what will typically happen, it'll get filed will take maybe 30 days on average to look at the case and then refer it to SOA. One of the things that we'll probably end up doing is referring those cases more quickly to SOA so that the evidentiary record can be built over there. They have ALJs that are paid, that are familiar with our subject matter and are well-skilled to do that work.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other question? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a member of SOA,
Please.
Shane Lakehouse. Now, Shane, state your name and the record and who you're with.
Yes, sir. I'm Shane Linkus. I'm the General Counsel for State Office of Administrative Hearings. I'm here testifying as a resource on the bill.
Neutral on HB 2669, correct?
That is correct.
And she can sit because you're not, just sit right there in that chair.
I was going to say, I have with me.
Oh, that's fine. You're testifying.
Okay. Well, I'm following on to what.
Well, you haven't been asked anything yet.
Oh, okay.
All right. Speaker Guerin.
Yes, sir, and thank you for being here. Can you walk me through the timeline after SOA receives, SOA receives
Sure. So
information from the PUC?
if I can do a short introduction, I think I'd like to turn
Hold
that
on.
question. Sir.
That's not how we do it, like SOA, okay? So if she needs to be the testifier, then let me call her up because she has filed the affirmation.
Correct.
Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting for that.
Thank you. You're here on the bill. You're the general counsel for State Office of Administrative Hearings, and we got you here if we need to call you back. You sit in that chair, and who is Megan Bailey? Come on up.
Thank you.
Okay, Megan, you're with the State Office of Administrative Hearings. You're neutral on HB 2669, correct?
Correct.
What's your title?
I'm an administrative law judge at the State Office of Administrative Hearings.
Very good. Now, Speaker Guerin will ask you some questions.
I'd like to ask the same question. Can you walk me through the timeline after you receive the order from PUC?
Sure. So I'd like to start with saying, as many people have mentioned, we do process some of the CCN cases on a 180-day timeline for the critical. We do think it would be possible to use that 180-day timeline for the other transmission cases that are not deemed critical if certain conditions have been met. There's 3 distinct parts of the case that are outside of SOA's control that eat into the either 1-year deadline or the 180-day deadline. The first is the time that it takes for the case to be referred to SOA. So in calendar years 2021 and 2022, we had about approximately 12 CCN cases that would be applicable to House Bill 2669. On the majority of those, it took about 70 days for the case to be referred to SOA before we could even touch it.
70.
70.
And that's by the PUC, is that correct?
Yes. There are some outliers. One was 20 days and one was about 208. But the majority of them were between 65 days to 82 days. So that's the first aspect of the case that's outside of our control. When we get the referral, we have a pre-hearing conference with the applicant and any of the parties and the interveners, and we work on developing a procedural schedule that will allow us to meet the deadline if we can. So how we do that is we ask for proposed procedural schedules for discovery for the parties. We estimate times that the parties may need for post-hearing briefings, 60 days for us to write the PFD, and then that gets me to the second part, which is outside of our control, which is the time that the parties will be provided for exceptions and replies to our PFD, and that time frame is set by the PUC. So once we issue our PFD, we really don't have anything to do with the case after that. So the time period that the PUC allows for the applicant and the parties to provide exceptions and replies to exceptions to the PFD varies, but we typically think of 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
But that's the PUC sets that schedule, is that correct?
Yes. Another aspect, the third aspect that's outside of our control is the amount of time that the PUC Commission will need to review the PFD, set it on an open meeting agenda, and make a final order decision. When we are instructing the parties on developing a procedural schedule, we tell them to provide or leave leeway for 3 to 5 weeks so that the commission has at least 2 open meetings to set that case or the PFD on the open meeting to make a decision. However, in looking at those 12 cases that were referred in 2021 and 2022, the time period between when the PFD was issued and when a final PUC order was issued varies from 56 days to 171. So we're unable to estimate that time period.
180 days is it is realistic then?
It is realistic, but there are aspects that would need to be set. For instance, for the CCN cases that are deemed critical, we receive those applications. Those are referred to SOA within 4 to 5 days of the application being filed. So if we received timely referrals of the CCN applications for the general CCNs that are not deemed critical, we think we could set a procedural schedule that would meet the 180-day timeline. Now that's 180 days to have the application filed, have the hearing, issue the PFD, and then leaving 3 weeks or 5 weeks for the PUC Commission to make a decision. But that would be out of our control.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that. Okay. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate a clear understanding of what happens at SOA.
Of course.
Any Representative Anchia?
Yeah, just a question. Thanks for your testimony today, and thanks, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, for bringing this bill. What timelines would we be compressing here? We've heard testimony that due process would remain the same. So has it just become course of performance that we've been finishing these cases quicker and therefore we can reduce these timelines? Or is there a piece that you're going to have to accelerate along the way in the process?
So we try to leave the timelines, the proposals for the timelines up to the applicant and the interveners that are going to be, proposing discovery deadlines, how many days they're going to need for hearing. So that all kind of depends on the complexity of the case and how long the parties want to do discovery and then post-hearing briefings and all of that. So we try to leave that to them so they have more knowledge of what they're going to need.
And so by compressing this time frame, it also may force them to act more quickly?
Yes.
And not engage in any delays. That makes sense to me. Would it make sense to include a sort of a tolling mechanism here so that, the time is not running before you have received the referral?
So we actually identified a similar statute that refers to TCEQ water permitting cases, and I can give you the citation. It's Texas Government Code Section 2003.047E2, and this has a similar time frame. It's 180 days once SOA has a preliminary, or for their case, a preliminary hearing, and then for the SOA PFD issuance date. So from the preliminary hearing to PFD issue date, it's 180 days. And I will note, once we do get cases referred, we do issue orders very timely to set up a pre-hearing conference to get the procedural schedule working.
So if the clock could start ticking at that phase one, you wouldn't be subject to a lag in the referral period from the
Correct.
PUC. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, members?
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. What types of issues are you typically considering in these cases?
We have certain requirements and criteria that are set in statute and in the PUC's rules. The adequacy of the service, the reliability of the grid, there's community values, there's all different types of criteria, about, I want to say 12 different factors that we consider. Some of the big ones are people do not want these lines in or near their property, and so that's a very big concern that we discuss.
So eminent domain issues, are those brought before your?
We don't deal with the eminent domain at SOA in the PUC.
Okay, but you do hear parties who perhaps feel their property would be affected.
Yes.
They have the ability to intervene?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions, members? Thank you all.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming over.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on for or against the bill? Not, Chair recognizes Speaker Guerin to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. It seems like we can tighten some of these timelines up, especially in the initial referral. And it's been testified that they can do it in 180 days. I think we need to get to 180 days. Let's don't delay it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you, Speaker. The chair moves to leave HB 2669 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 2669 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 3737, recognizes Chairman Metcalf to explain his bill. Chair offers a committee substitute to HB 3737.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. The committee substitute for House Bill 3737, which adds using good faith efforts language to derive utility-specific service or area boundary maps from the original PUC-approved maps to ensure that no one will be able to successfully argue that utilities are guaranteeing the accuracy of every aspect of their maps due to the fact that their digitized maps only represent their best efforts as translating the paper maps into geographic information systems, or better known as GIS. The substitute also clarifies that natural gas facility operators have access to their specific portion of the electricity supply chain map because many leases and wells are owned by multiple people and entities but operated by one company. SB 3 was passed during the 87th legislative session, which mandated the creation of an electricity supply chain map. To continue improving the map, the PUC has recommended adding key infrastructure to the map, including roads and water facilities. This legislation adds roads necessary to access facilities on the electricity supply chain map to the map, and adds executive director of the TxDOT to the committee. It also includes water and wastewater treatment plants. House Bill 3737 also requires electric utilities, electric cooperatives, and municipally owned utilities to provide the PUC with their service area boundary map in GIS format. Entities will also have access to view their specific portions of the map. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
Any questions for the chairman? Thank you. We'll give you your right to close. We will go to witnesses. John Gordon. John, we have you here for yourself for HB 3737. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
John Gordon, electrical engineer 4. First off, I really approve of the fact that you put in water and wastewater systems. People don't realize how large a generating capacity is at some of these facilities. I know the one out at Lakeway has a 150 megawatts generator at their main water plant. And, that's like 3,000 homes, 30 homes that could receive power if that utility system turned on their backup power supply. So, and that's just a small water system. And the wastewater systems also have large facilities. So that is a very important part of this electric map. And also that would help ERCOT. It would help them all know quicker if they're getting into trouble, when to bring on units, where they can bring them on, and how they can help reduce losses in certain specific areas by bringing in these facilities. So I really recommend your bill be passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you, sir.
No questions.
Is there anybody else? We show no other affirmations. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? Thank you. Chairman Metcalf to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I close.
Thank you, Chairman. The chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute to HB 3737. I'll leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 3737 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 4287 and recognizes Chairman Metcalf to explain the bill. Chair offers a committee substitute to HB 4287.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. In an effort to correct some drafting areas, we do have the committee substitute that you just mentioned, and the committee sub ensures a defined term, customer-sited distributed generation, and used consistently throughout. In subsection D1, the term off-system was struck to clarify the scope of sales margins to be shared with the host customer. Finally, in Section E, edits were made to clarify that the full cost of generating unit is placed in rates to be offset by payments from the host customer. This allows for the units to be treated just like we treat our power plants, but at a smaller scale. Severe weather events are becoming more frequent, and these events cause major impacts to businesses that all Texans depend on to support their families and communities. As a response to recent severe weather events, Entergy has initiated pilot projects partnering with commercial businesses offering up to 10 megawatts of natural gas-fueled backup on-site generation. The distributed generation program laid out in Committee Substitute House Bill 4287 affords commercial interests like hospitals, cities, colleges, and first responders to partner with the utility for backup generation services. As part of this bill, the commercial host customer receives the benefit of having on-site generation during an outage to support their business, and the utility can utilize the generator for grid support at other times. The utility will own, operate, and maintain the generator located on the customer's premises. This service supplied by the generator will be offered at an affordable, fixed monthly charge to the host customer. The monthly charge will cover the host customer's portion of the generator cost over a recovery period of up to 20 years, as specified by the customer, and then the ongoing service costs after the recovery period. 4287 makes it simple and affordable to have the best backup power generation available in the market. Chairman, members, I believe 4287 will be hugely beneficial by adding dispatchable generation to support local communities and provide backup power to commercial customers that experience significant losses during power outages. I do believe we have some expert testimony that is here. If you have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for the chairman? Thank you. We'll give you your right to close. We'll go to the live testimony. Stuart Barrett. Stuart, we have you with Entergy for HB 4287. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Stuart Barrett. I'm with Entergy, and I'll be testifying for House Bill 4287. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Entergy Texas is a fully integrated utility located in Southeast Texas, serving over 500,000 Texans. Entergy Texas has developed a pilot program we call Power Through that helps our customers secure natural gas backup generation for their commercial businesses so that they can operate uninterrupted during an outage. This program provides energy resilience service and two critical benefits. One, the backup for the commercial business during an outage. Second, we have found a way to optimize that unit for the majority of the hours of the year. The commercial customers not in an outage, we can run those generators for the benefit of all of our customers. As Representative Metcalf mentioned, Entergy Texas will own, operate, and maintain the generation on the customer's premise, and the backup service supplied to the host will be at an affordable fixed monthly charge for that customer. The key to this, optimizing this asset, is when the host customer is not in an outage, we'll be able to deploy that generation back to the grid for voltage support and additional capacity to meet our growing power demand in Texas. This legislation will allow Entergy to expand the Power Through program and spread the benefits of reliable natural gas generation to additional customers. It will increase reliability and resiliency to Southeast Texans and allow for participants of the Power Through program uninterrupted service to the community. So if you think of a Winter Storm Uri or any other hurricane event, we'll be able to keep these types of businesses, universities, grocery stores, providing ice, medicine, water, and food, as well as warming or cooling centers and responding to emergencies. Thank you for your time today, and I'll take any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Joel, you. Joel, we have you with Enchanted Rock LLC for HB 4287. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Go right ahead.
All right, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Joel Yu. I'm with Enchanted Rock and here to testify in support of HB 4287. And thank you, Representative Metcalf, for your leadership on the bill. As part of the Power Through program that Entergy's mentioned, they're working with industry participants like Enchanted Rock to facilitate the deployment of needed resiliency assets in the non-ERCOT areas. Without a program like as contemplated by HB 4287, dispatchable distributed generation resources don't have a means to access revenues for the grid services they provide, in addition to the backup power services they provide. In the pilot program, we support 2 retail grocery store locations in the Woodlands and in Beaumont, operational since September 2019 and September 2021, respectively. In that time, we've covered a total of 18 separate utility outage events, and we've provided over 1,000 hours of grid services. And at each site, we've performed at over 99.999% uptime for the host customers in that pilot. So we feel like it's well proven, and bringing together the backup power services, the monetization opportunity for grid services is very important as the legislature addresses power reliability and resiliency through market programs in the ERCOT area. We think it's also important to address some of these issues in the non-ERCOT territories, and that's why we're supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you very much. John Gordon. John, we have you representing yourself for HB 4287. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
John Gordon, electrical engineer. Representative Metcalf, it's a good bill. Importance is dispatchable. You put the word dispatchable in there so it can be called up during emergencies. These are generally Caterpillar type diesel engines that have a generator on the end of them, or Wärtsilä. And I misspoke. It was 150 kW at the power plants at the wastewater treatment plant they could call up, but up to 10 megawatts, which is a pretty good size, a little bit of a units out there. There are a lot of critical loads that have to have service. As I mentioned, the grocery stores, you can't lose power without losing huge amounts of inventory. There's other facilities that have to keep going for at least till they can clear their processes without jamming up their processes. So I do support your bill very much, and providing gas for them or supplies to them is very important if they're going to run. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. We have no other witness affirmation. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill? Not, Chair recognizes Chairman Metcalf to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I look forward to your favorable consideration if this matter is brought back before you, and I close.
Any questions? Yeah, Representative Dale.
Just a question for the chairman. As far as like schools and in some of the other like state facilities, whatnot, Chairman, could they do programs like this at all?
We've got this as part of the bill: hospitals, cities, colleges, first responders.
Like a lot of our rural schools right now, you know, they can't afford to go out and buy a big generator without having to have a fundraiser of some kind. So this would be a perfect program.
Let me get back to you on that specific question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. So the chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute to HB 4287. Leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 4287 is left pending. Chair lays out HB 2555 and recognizes Chairman Metcalf to explain his bill. The chair offers committee substitute HB 2555.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, as you mentioned, we do have committee substitute, which includes the following changes. It clarifies that the resiliency plan allows for modernizing transmission and distribution facilities, as that can technically differ from hardening, though the effect is the same. It clarifies that the resiliency plan may include physical security measures, a very important issue as we've seen following substantial attacks nationwide over the past year. Finally, it clarifies that the resiliency plans are meant to provide an outline of cost that may be recovered through a plan approved by the PUC. It is not meant to be a requirement that the utility implement everything listed in the plan, particularly if it is impacted by cost, supply chain issues, or other real-world challenges. Severe weather events are becoming more frequent, and these storms cause significant damages to the electric grid that all Texans depend on to support their businesses and families. The Texas Electric Infrastructure Resiliency Act, or House Bill 2555, will strengthen our electric system by allowing electric utilities to develop plans that will address the following: replacing transmission structures and distribution poles with higher wind rated facilities, vegetation management, raising assets located in flood-prone areas, undergrounding targeted portions of distribution lines, addressing cyber and physical security. Under House Bill 2555, each utility would present a plan covering at least 3 years of the Public Utility Commission of Texas to achieve these resiliency goals. The PUC would then approve, modify, or deny provisions in the plan prior to beginning of the planned project. The PUC would have the authority over these plans, providing them flexibility for how the costs are recovered. Importantly, the PUC will assess these plans based on the resiliency benefits they will provide, balancing those benefits with the expected cost. House Bill 2555 aims to address resiliency in a proactive approach. Rather than waiting for an extreme weather event, the electric utilities can plan and procure the necessary equipment and labor they need, avoiding the higher prices that can come with weather emergencies. Proactively hardening the grid in a planned manner will provide a lower restoration cost and mitigate outages time customers experience during and after a weather event. Chairman, members, I believe House Bill 2555 will help us to strengthen the Texas grid resiliency to a higher standard. This will support our growing population and economy while keeping this great state of Texas strong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
What a conclusion. Any questions? Man.
When can we vote?
Yes, sir. We're going to keep Texas strong.
We'll let you close, Chairman.
Thank you.
Sean Meredith. Sean, we show you're with Energy, you're for HB 2555, correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Sean Meredith with Entergy Texas, and I'll be testifying in support of House Bill 2555. Thank you, committee, for allowing me to be here today. Entergy Texas is a fully integrated utility located in Southeast Texas. We own, operate natural gas generation, transmission, and distribution assets, providing electricity to almost 500,000 Texans. Resiliency is the ability to prepare for, adapt to, and recover from non-normal weather events, such as hurricanes, floods, winter events, and other major weather disruptions. By comparison, system reliability focuses on the availability of electricity or power to our customers under normal operating conditions, which can include day-to-day operational challenges such as thunderstorms. For an electric utility system, resiliency is relative to the severe weather events and has at least 3 critical dimensions. Those dimensions include hardening, which involves building the infrastructure to handle those stronger wind events or hurricanes or ice. Second, it's modernization that allows us to adapt during those events, and that can be everything from self-healing networks. And third is the ability to recover, which includes designing our assets to assist in a quicker recovery after a major weather event. Energy services Southeast Texas. The area is prone to hurricanes and other natural disasters. Over the last 6 years, hurricanes have become more frequent and intense, bringing greater costs and disruptions to Entergy Texas and its customers. Customers depend upon the electric grid, and that has also increased, which in turn has raised the demand and expectations for a resilient system. The Gulf Coast has experienced 4 hurricanes in the last 3 years, with the latest being Hurricane Ian that made landfall in September of 2022. It's critical for the utility system to be more resilient and reliable to withstand conditions caused by severe weather events, therefore reducing the outage duration our customers experience and enabling less costly restorations. Passing this resiliency legislation allows for the utilities to proactively invest to mitigate these threats. Thank you for the time today, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Jeff Strasenser. Jeff, we got you with AEP Texas 4HB 2555. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Hernandez, and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Strassner. I am Vice President of Distribution Region Operations for AEP Texas, headquartered out of Corpus Christi. I'm honored today to represent over 1,500 employees of AEP Texas that are spread out across the great state of Texas, from the Panhandle to the Rio Grande and from the Coastal Bend to the Big Bend. They take a lot of pride in the reliability that they provide to our customers and the service that they do. But as we have talked about here today, there's events that occur constantly that are interrupting the best laid plans that we make throughout the year. Whether it's a weather event or whether it's customer growth, as Mr. Chairman, you're quite aware, and other members are, Texas is blessed to be in a state that has a significant customer growth. Those activities, as they pop up, take away resources from our resiliency plan. So this piece of legislation will provide an opportunity for us to dedicate funds and resources to resiliency while still paying strong attention to our obligation to serve to any new customers, any service restoration activities that we need to do. And while we may have some current regulatory mechanisms to recover some of those investments, not all of our investments in resiliency are able to be recovered through those plans. So it's critical that we be proactive. It's critical that we be thoughtful in our plans. And we think this piece of legislation gives us an opportunity to do just that, to present our plan to the commission and those interested parties before we execute on it, to know we've got their blessings on it so that our investors know that their opportunity to invest will have a recovery mechanism. And my team that's charged with executing those plans will know that those resources will be there as we go forward. So I ask you give this a strong consideration, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Katie Coleman. Katie, we have you with Texas Association of Manufacturers against HB 2555. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead.
Katie Coleman for the Texas Association of Manufacturers, and we are respectfully opposed to the filed version of the bill. I have not had a chance to see the substitute yet. We did provide red lines to Representative Metcalf's office, and we've been working with the utilities, and hopefully we can negotiate some of these issues. We support the idea of the PUC looking at resiliency plans in advance. We actually think that that's a really good idea. Each utility service area is different, and so what is good for one utility service area and would be prudent in terms of resiliency may not be true for another utility service area. So we definitely see some benefit in allowing the utilities to get certainty about whether their plan is a good one before they go and execute it. Our concern with the bill is that in addition to this pre-approval of a resiliency plan, there is a new rate-making feature that's being proposed that is very heavy-handed, I'll say, in terms of cost recovery. There are already tools in place that allow utilities to recover all of their distribution costs and all of their transmission costs outside of a rate case. So it's unclear what this rate rider adds in terms of recovery. We believe it might be intended to allow recovery of expenses, which is typically something that has not been included in rate riders. Those have been reserved for capital investment where utilities actually have some risk. So we are concerned that this is going to be used for expenses. There is also a provision in the filed bill that requires a rate to be set for the levelized cost of implementing the plan, which we read as allowing the utility to begin recovering the estimated costs of this plan immediately, even before they've expended the funds. So fundamentally, we are concerned that this shifts a lot of costs and risk to consumers to implement this plan, and we're not sure what it adds that's necessary given that they already have rate riders for all of their investment. So that's our concern, not the resiliency piece, but just the cost recovery piece, and we will continue working on that aspect. And I'm happy to take questions.
So just so as Representative Dean has brought up, so you're working with Chairman Metcalf's office, and you're working with shareholders on these issues, correct?
We did provide a red line on.
Is that correct or not?
Yes, that is correct. We will
Okay.
continue to do so.
All right. Representative Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. So I want to make sure I understand. So you support the resiliency efforts in legislation, but you believe that the providers have the ability to recover their costs associated with resiliency already in statute? You're saying they don't need additional authorization to do that?
Certainly, they don't need additional authorization to recover them in general. I think the question is how and when they're recovering them, and we're reading the bill as allowing, in some instances, recovery even before the costs have been expended. And it's not just capital investment where they actually bear some risk, it's also expenses. And so those are features that are already addressed, we believe, sufficiently in rate making otherwise. The risk that they really bear is if they make resiliency investments and they don't know whether the PUC is going to view those as prudent or not, they may get disallowed later when the costs are reviewed in a rate case. A pre-approval process would address that, and we believe that is a good idea, but it's the cost recovery piece that doesn't seem to be necessary. We already have a rider, the distribution cost recovery factor for distribution costs, and then a transmission cost recovery factor for transmission costs that covers any investment that they make on a timely basis. So that's our concern, is we're not sure why we need another rider.
Okay, and you said you have concerns about allowing them to recover costs for expenses?
Yes.
So expenses in this context would include what?
Well, for example, one of the items that's called out as a resiliency tool is vegetation management. That's something that utilities are supposed to do anyway. They do it on a regular basis, and when we do their rate reviews, we look at their historical vegetation management costs and set their rates on that basis. So having an additional tool to recover vegetation management expense at best confuses things, but at worst could present opportunities for double recovery, even if that's not intentional. And as a matter of policy, the PUC does not have any tool today that recovers expenses outside of a rate case. That has been reserved for capital investment.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Chairman.
The only thing that I want to add, Katie, is, the PUCT, they'll control what's ultimately approved.
Well, maybe. So they'll approve the plan, but once the plan is approved, that was actually one of our other concerns with the bill, is there's fairly restrictive language on their ability to review the costs after the fact. Once the plan has been approved, they can't determine things are imprudent even if they exceeded the cost estimates. So there are some elements of the bill that tie the PUC's hands in reviewing those costs after the fact.
Okay. I appreciate y'all coming by on Monday of this week, talking to us, and, we'll continue to have those discussions. And other than that, we're going to keep Texas strong, members.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Bell. Mark, we have you with the Association of Electric Companies of Texas for HB 2555. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. For the record, my name is Mark Bell on behalf of the ACT, the Association of Electric Companies of Texas. I'm here today to support the committee substitute for House Bill 2555. Having a resilient grid that can respond to a multitude of challenges is critically important to reliability. Resiliency measures benefit consumers with reduced outages and reduced duration of outages during all types of weather events. House Bill 2555 provides a comprehensive mechanism for utilities to plan for and invest in system resiliency that doesn't currently exist. Under this legislation, utilities can file a resiliency plan with the Public Utility Commission, and this newly created process allows the PUC to retain oversight of these projects where they can determine the necessity of the resiliency plan based on its cost and benefits. And then the utility can come in and make the necessary investments in resiliency. that makes the most sense for their service territory. This streamlined process prioritizes resiliency planning, allows utilities some assurances that they will be able to recover these prudently incurred expenditures, which ultimately levelizes the cost to consumers in both time and money. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you, sir. Zachary Stevenson. Zachary, we have you with the Texas Electric Cooperatives Neutral and HB 2555. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm Zachary Stevenson on behalf of Texas Electric Cooperatives, and I'm testifying today on House Bill 2555. Thank you, Chairman Metcalf, for this legislation. We completely agree with its intent and need for a resilient grid that can withstand extreme weather. Due to the nature of socialized costs within ERCOT, we are impacted by this bill because our end users will have to pay for the transmission upgrades identified in a utilities resiliency plan. In our reading of the bill, this is a streamlined proceeding with few opportunities for the public and other interested parties to really challenge or comment on a proposed resiliency plan. We understand that the cost and prudence of the plan would be evaluated in a later rate case where a deeper scrutiny would occur. And so we would just like to make clear that approval of a plan does not affect the prudence determination which would be made in the utility's next rate case. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, members? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Joel Yu. Joel, we have you with Enchanted Rock LLC for HB 2555. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Joel Yu on behalf of Enchanted Rock. We're a Houston-based microgrid owner, operator, and developer. And thank you, Representative Metcalf, on your leadership on this bill. As experts in power resiliency, we're supportive of an all of the above approach to resiliency efforts, and we've proposed a set of red lines to add a category to the list of potential methods for utility consideration in these resiliency plans to include investments in grid sectionalizing and system protection measures such as the installation of transfer trip, which will allow forward-thinking utilities to deploy strategies that enhance grid resilience in coordination with distributed generation and to facilitate resiliency microgrid deployments across their systems. Grid sectionalizing equipment might include things like reclosers and switches that can be installed along distribution feeders to create more operational flexibility for the purposes of load shedding and to enable strategic islanded operations in coordination with local dispatchable generation. And system protection measures like transfer trip enable utility distribution feeders to facilitate safe and reliable resiliency operations by distributed generation. Given the voluntary nature of the program, we think it would be safe to include this type of measure just for consideration by the utilities. And we think it's well supported. We know FEMA has identified microgrids such as those enabled by Enchanted Rock's proposed red lines here as an all hazards resiliency strategy alongside some of the contemplated measures in the bill like vegetation management and infrastructure hardening. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions, members? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Members, we have no other affirmations. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on for or against the bill?
I thought I had. Must not have taken. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, John Gordon, representing yourself for HB 2555, correct?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
John Gordon, professional engineer. I apologize. I went in and typed in, I guess it didn't take. First off, I support your bill. I'd like to comment that it has generally what we were instructed to do prior to the PUC even regulating electrical engineers as to how we designed it. So a couple things. Transmission lines, they generally have the area cleared around them, and they're built to withstand very high winds. They may not take a strike from a tornado, direct strike, but mostly they'll survive even a hurricane unless it's an extreme hurricane. So transmission lines are really not what's taking out people from electricity. It's the distribution lines, which is from the substation into the home areas, and then it's stepped down to homes. You got some good language in there, but I would point out it's trees. If you look at every picture, almost everywhere, it's trees that knock down the distribution lines. And it's going to be very difficult to design a transmission line system that withstands the impact from a tree knocking it down. So if there is any way that y'all can, in your legislation or in any future legislation, increase the ability of electric utility systems to keep trees away from their distribution lines, that would probably do 50%, maybe 70% improvement in making sure that in extreme weather events and situations, we still keep the electricity on, because that's what takes the lines down. It's the trees next to them. And I know there's lots of people that like those beautiful trees right in their edge of their yards, but that's what is taking them down. And if we could do that one thing, that will improve the reliability of providing electricity to homes quicker than anything else. And electrical engineers can't do anything unless you give us some rules to allow us to strip the trees away. Okay?
Thank you, John. Any questions? Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? Not, Chair recognizes Chairman Metcalf to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I look forward to your favorable consideration if this matter is brought back before you and I close.
Thank you, Chair. The Chair moves to withdraw the committee substitute to HB 2555 and leave the bill pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, HB 2555 is left pending. Members, this will be our last bill, and I'm turning the gavel over to our Vice Chair.
The chair lays out House Bill 3390 and recognizes Chairman Hunter to explain his bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'm going to give you the bullet points, and I want you to know that this is a work in progress. We'll be meeting with stakeholders to modify and sharpen this particular proposal. But HB 3390 helps ensure ERCOT has access to important distribution level information. It needs to properly forecast demand and plan for future needs. While ERCOT has insight into generation resources and loads connected at the transmission level, it doesn't have the same visibility into the distribution level system. In its agency response letter to the Sunset Advisory Commission, ERCOT raised concerns about lack of information, especially as more distribution level customers added rooftop solar and electric vehicle charging stations. HB 3390 seeks to address this problem by creating a mechanism for ERCOT to obtain the relevant information it needs on the distribution level system. The bill clarifies ERCOT and the PUC's ability to require utilities to share information about these smaller generators as well as distribution-connected loads in the region. This information will allow ERCOT to better model, forecast needs on the grid, and how they may be impacted by weather outages or other unforeseen circumstances. We do have a resource witness, but I do want you all to know that we will be working on modifications, and I'll keep the committee completely up to date. And thank you, members. I reserve the right to close.
Members, are there any questions? If there are no questions, we'll proceed to testimony. Chair calls John Gordon. We have you registered as John Gordon, representing yourself, and you're testifying for the bill. Is that correct?
Yes.
You may proceed.
John Gordon, electrical engineer. My only comment is you really need to leave shall in there. I could see where you put the may put in there, but if you really want that information and the systems really do need it to do a good job of providing electricity, that really needs to be shall, that the people shall. And I think there's 3 or 4 locations that you had marked out the word shall and put may in there. So I'd recommend you put shall.
Any questions? Thank you. There are no more witness affirmation forms. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on, for, or against the bill? If not, the chair recognizes Chairman Hunter to close on his bill.
Close.
Thank you, Chairman Hunter. The chair moves to leave House Bill 3390 pending at this time. Is there any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 3390 is left pending.
Thank you, members, and to all the witnesses for their participation in today's hearing. Is there any business left to be discussed? This concludes our business for today. If there's no objection, the Committee on State Affairs will stand adjourned, subject to call of the chair. The chair here knows objection. Committee on State Affairs is now adjourned.